Finn, I think you might be the only person I'll ever talk to alive who knows what Slimer tastes like.
Yeah. Nice. Got a suit on?
That's right. I love that we keep meeting like this, guys. How you doing?
Great.
How are you?
Good, good, good. I love the movie. I didn't expect to love it as much as Afterlife, but it's so much fun. I had a great
Oh,
time with
good.
it. Paul, I've heard you talking about getting to drive the original Ecto One, which might be cooler than winning the Sexiest Man Alive award.
Definitely.
But I need to know, like, how many times did each of you slide down the fire pole?
We weren't really allowed to do it without proper stunt harnesses.
Well, there was some, they had to be secured because it was like they were, I did it one time.
Yeah, and Finn got to do the big long slide, and Kumail had the great slide in his gear. We only got to really do it once, like with the laundry basket and stuff, but
It's very fun. It's really fun.
yeah.
That's such a disappointing answer because I just
Sorry,
in my
the stunt
head
guys are there to
thought
keep
that's
us
how
safe.
you guys were moving around set.
Yeah, by the way, I don't know who you were talking to. I slid down that mother.
He's Paul Rudd. He gets to do whatever he wants.
It was awesome.
So annoying.
Wasn't that? I'm just like, I'm gonna try it.
They
It's right
won't
here.
even let you. They grab your shirt and stop you. Anyway, next question.
Paul, I want to know what's the best character name you've ever had? Is it Gary Gruberson or George Gergenblatt?
Ooh, it's tough.
God, I tell you, and both, by the way, double G names.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, because I think, here's I will say, first of all, nice pull on Gergenblatt. I really laughed with Gergenblatt because it only comes out at the very end of the movie. You've never heard that as my character's name, only George. And and there's something also I think just so dumb and satisfying about Gergenblatt. They're just the cadence of it.
It's fun to say, man.
It is fun to say. It's not fun to be, but it's fun to say.
No, I think it's like a new cuss word for me. Like if I stub my toe, I was like,
Gergenblatt. That's
Gergenblatt.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one for the kids.
Get over here, you Gergenblatt.
Now, speaking of Wanderlust, man, you've got so many cult comedies that I love. I mean, role models, and I Love You, Man. Dinner for Schmucks is like legitimately my wife's favorite comedy. Which of your cult comedies, if any, would you be most interested in revisiting?
Oh my gosh, I don't feel that I maybe need to revisit any of them.
Maybe not need to, want to.
What? Want to. It was pretty fun. It was pretty fun playing the guy in I Love You, Man. It's just like such awkward comedy is a real fun thing to get to play. And not some of those like I like well-intentioned and but not capable of kind of follow through. And I think that kind of character.
It's fun.
And then a weird thing happens sometimes. Like it's not a really. I mean, it is a comedy, but this movie, Our Idiot Brother, the character was so positive and wasn't judgmental in any way about anyone or anything. And as a result, during the shooting of that movie, that's the way that I felt. And I was in such a happy mood making it. There was an interesting kind of experience to go like, I guess it really does. It doesn't mean you're a method actor per se, but it's like the character does rub off on you in real life. And that was not a bad space to live in for a while.
Oh, that's awesome. Just for fun, a last question. Since technically ghosts are intangible and anyone can just pass through them, how do you guys think Ant-Man would go about catching a ghost?
Oh, he'd probably build something. Ants are so resourceful.
I'd call on the help of a few friends because I don't know if he's got that kind of
That
capability.
kind of power. Yeah.
Um,
That's its own superpower, really. Being willing to ask for help.
That is its own superpower.
He'd probably have to employ some ants because they can do everything.
They're amazing.
It's really true. They can get anywhere, go
They
everywhere.
can float.
The way they create that.
They work. They would work.
themselves,
Yeah.
they work together.
They'd
so
really
well.
work together.
It would be a story of a community working together to catch.
That's exactly right. A colony.
Yeah, a colony. Yeah.
There's a lot to learn from ants. Thank you guys so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
I
Take
really
care.
appreciate it. You guys are the best. Thank you. What's up, guys?
How's
It's
it
so
going?
good to see y'all again.
Hey, what patch? What's your patch say?
Oh, that's it's Zedmore.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to Ernie later, so it felt like I needed to wear Zedmore.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
McKenna, it's good to see you since MegaCon, but
Hey.
I wanted to say, and Finn, you were there too, but I didn't get to talk to you.
Yeah.
First things first, roughly how many times do you guys think you slid down the fire pole?
I think a lot. You had that scene where you go down. I think you had to do that a bunch, right? A few takes.
I'd say give or take 37 and a half times.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I had to. Yeah,
I
37.
want to know the story of the halftime. Like you didn't make it all the way down.
Do what?
I said, I want to know the story behind the halftime. You said
Oh,
37 and a half,
worry
so
about
you
it.
just,
The
okay.
halftime is
Don't worry
McKenna
about
got
it.
stuck and she had to get
Don't worry
someone on a
about it.
ladder come and get her. So, yeah, that'd be crazy if you could stop yourself halfway through.
You can.
Can you?
Like if you just like
Oh yeah, true. If you would just
I
grab
get
on.
stuck a lot whenever I'm sliding down the fire pole because like Phoebe's always wearing shorts, so I'll just
Oh,
like
that's the worst.
just-
Oh, God.
fucking like slide
worst.
down it's the worst.
Well, you got to use your your
Yeah,
arms,
but
your
then like
arms.
also my arms catch because I'm always wearing like tank tops and
Yeah.
shorts. It's
Mhm.
not good.
Finn, I think you might be the only person I'll ever talk to alive who knows what Slimer tastes like. So, as if you were a food critic, can you explain it to me?
Yeah, it's sort of like a boring taste. Yeah, I don't know. I give it like a 1 out of 5, honestly. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like monotonous sort of, and Slimer, I feel like just needs to figure out, you
So
know.
like Slimer jaded right now.
Yeah, I just feel like he has like outweighed his welcome sort of as like a sort of taste. And yeah, I just feel like he's becoming, yeah, I don't know. Kind of like,
So, not Ecto Cooler then.
no, he's not Ecto Cooler. Ecto Cooler is
Mm.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but his
Okay.
slime itself is sort of like, yeah, I don't know. I think he needs to like figure out the recipe.
Well, this is something I think could be a lot of fun, but if the Ghostbusters were to cross over with like any other franchise that you wanted, like which one would you most want to see?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Ghostbusters crossover with Silence of the Lambs.
With Hannibal Lecter?
Yeah, Ghostbusters crossed with Zodiac.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters crossed with. I'm trying to think of the worst example.
Me too.
Just the Exorcist or something? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a
Ooh, but
really
that would be
dark-
good.
yeah, that would be cool. Like a dark horror movie. Oh yeah, they've never done an Exorcist. I guess it's demon. That's a demon. That's not like a ghost.
Yeah,
Is that technically a
Ghostbusters.
ghost? No, it's like
Huh?
a spirit of like an evil thing. I don't know.
I feel like Garaka is kind of a demon. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Definitely something.
And like Gozer's like a Sumerian god, right? Or like, so it's technically not a demon. I don't know if it's a demon. I'll have to consult the lore expert.
Yeah. Talk
yeah,
to
I would love to see like Gremlins or Beetlejuice. I think for me, I think that would be like a lot.
Gremlins would be awesome.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Sir, it's so good to see you again, man. I hope you're doing well. The movie's awesome. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you, man. Thanks for representing. I love the outfit, and yeah, I'm happy to talk to you.
I couldn't pass up an opportunity to talk to you without wearing this. So, Ernie, even though I don't think it appears in the movie, did you get to slide down the fire pole for old time's sake on set?
You know, no, I didn't because I've slid down it before, and the thrill is gone. So I'm good. I'm
Okay.
good, but I love the idea of the fire pole. But no, thank you.
Well, obviously in Afterlife, you got to put on the suit again, but did like being in the old firehouse drum up any memories about filming the original that maybe you'd forgotten about?
Yeah, no, it's I think just walking into now you realize that there's a firehouse, which we've, done some work, and then the set designers are amazing people, and they kind of recreated that. So we have walls we can move and shoot. So where we actually shot the firehouse is not always a firehouse. So, but it was so realistic that it was easy to. I mean, this firehouse in the movie has so many levels that might not exist in the real one. But at the heart of it is a firehouse. It was great to be there. Every time I'm on set, I just remember the very first day I walked on it and went, "Wow, this is fun."
Yeah. Also, this complete sidebar, but can I say that your biceps are looking awesome right now? You're looking super jacked, man. I love it.
Well, thank you so much because, they call us the OGs. So being one of the old guys, I wanted to just send a message that, no, I'm still able to carry the backpack. Thank you very much. I'm ready to work. So,
well, now that I see this, I'm like, why'd they keep you in a suit the whole time? You look great.
I've had 50 years of acting wearing mostly suit and ties, so I thought, well, maybe people don't realize that I'm in good shape. I can handle it.
No, clearly. I wouldn't look. I'm not going to pick a fight with you now. Now, in addition to the Ghostbusters, I do want to tell you the original Crow is like one of my all-time favorite movies. And I was curious if you saw the trailer for the new Crow reboot, and if so, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it. The actor, who I can't think of his name, is playing the lead. I love and respect, but for me, the Crow is Brandon Lee. Brandon, I can't imagine. But I know this is, the Crow is many different stories. I just hope they don't try to redo him, that they do their own thing with it and take it in a different direction.
Absolutely.
But I haven't seen it, and I haven't seen any of the other Crows. But because, with what happened to Brandon, I was a little bit. But now, I mean, I'm open to, but I haven't seen it.
Okay. Well, at this point, as a character, you probably know Winston inside and out. Outside of the fact that he's a billionaire now, what's a personality trait that you feel like Winston Zeddemore has that you don't personally have in real life?
Well, I try to bring as much of me to this character. Not always, I'm working at different characters, but to this character as possible. And a lot of the values that I have, I'm happy to see in this. I'm glad to see that Winston is potentially an example of what's possible. It's been 40 years and he hasn't, stayed in the same place. He's worked very hard. He's been very successful. He still cares about the team. He looks out for Ray and Binkman. And he cares about his community. And he doesn't take busting lightly. He knows there's more than running around with a backpack. He's built this institute to research and get to the bottom of how these things impact our lives. So I just think Winston is, he's been allowed to grow. And I thank Sony and the filmmakers for giving me that space, because so many films, they just want to see a reflection of what was, show up so we can show the people you hear. And now we want to move on. So I didn't have to play that same character looking for a job.
Right. I got you. Sir, I'm out of time. It's such an honor to get to talk to you every time. I think you're an absolute legend. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you so much, man. Great talking to you.
Gil, the movie is amazing, man.
Thanks, man.
I didn't expect to love it as much as Afterlife, but I did. And I had so much fun watching this movie. So thank you for your time, man.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you. We're already off to a good start with your Zeddemore pullover. So really, really happy to talk to you.
Now, first thing I need to know is roughly how many times, if you could put into a number, do you think you slid down the fire pole?
I did it once, and I'll tell you why. It's because the fire poles were so high that in order to do it, you had to strap into some crazy contraption. They're genuinely, they're 25. Those ceilings are no joke. They are actual high ceilings. So it was an experience I'll never forget. It felt like a rite of passage. and I wouldn't be able to look you in the face if I hadn't done it
No,
properly.
you had to have, man. I was like, there's no way this man didn't slide down the fireball. I'm honestly disappointed it was just once.
I know,
I'm
but
surprised.
yeah, I had producers. I just so you know, a little backstory about me. I will always climb to the highest place on set. It's something I always do because instinctually I'm looking for an angle when I get to a set, and producers are always there trying to pull me off of ladders and things because I'm also the sloppiest, clumsiest person you'll ever meet, and I will fall off anything I stand on. And so they're just trying to maintain some sense of continuity for this story.
What did you get behind the wheel of the Ecto One like Paul did?
Yeah, I got behind the wheel of the Ecto One. Yeah, I came this close to actually being able to ride the Ecto C, but that thing was more temperamental, so I didn't actually get to move that thing.
That's so cool, man. You're just living out all my childhood dreams.
Oh,
I love it.
so
I
cool.
actually got to talk to Ivan Reitman for Afterlife, and I was able to tell him how when like Ghostbusters 2 was like the first movie I ever saw in the movie theaters, right? So and then I had a ghost trap that I for like a year or two I kept in front of my closet door just in case. You know what I mean?
Love that.
Like and so he was so awesome. How much does it mean to you to be able to sort of like give him that posthumous credit?
I can't tell you how meaningful it was. First, to make Afterlife as a co-writer with his son, Jason Reitman, who brought that film to the screen so beautifully as director. I had a front row seat to that process as a writer, as a participant in that creative process. And Ivan, as a filmmaker, changed my life as a fan. I mean, I watched the first Ghostbusters as one of my first big movies. My dad took me to see it when I was a little kid, and it completely floored me. I remember exactly where I was sitting for Ghostbusters 2 at a movie theater in the San Fernando Valley when Bill Murray's Peter Venkman character says, "You could have gone anywhere. You could have gone to the beautiful San Fernando Valley," and the whole audience started erupting in cheers. And I remember as a kid looking around being like, "You idiots, he's making fun of us." And so as an outsider, as a fan, I was so incredibly honored to be able to have a seat at the table creatively for telling the next chapter of these stories with Afterlife. And as that film was coming together, Jason and I started on our own to have a conversation about what the next step of this journey was going to be, where the story was going to go. And we just started to have these ideas that began to feel exciting. And those ideas started to kind of take shape to the point that a few weeks before Afterlife opened, we went up to Montecito to Ivan's house and sat and told him the story of Frozen Empire. And we pitched the entire 3-act structure of this film and got the warmest reception, his blessing, his validation for the direction we wanted to take these characters in and this franchise in. And so that was wind in our sails for making this film. And Ivan's voice, his presence, his brilliance was always there with us making this film. So it's only fitting that this film should end with his name and that he get the producer credit that he deserves.
I love that, man. That's such a great story. I one thing I want to applaud you on is Garraka is scary as hell, and that's a cool name, by the way. I loved him, and I think he's a great new addition to the pantheon of Ghostbusters villains. What was the genesis behind Garraka?
Well, the genesis was that we knew that we were going to amp up the stakes and that we were moving into the post-Gozerian era with this story. We finally were able to kind of resolve some of the loose threads of the first few films with Afterlife, and that meant that there was a huge yawning opportunity in front of us, which is a new mythology, a new villain, and one that would be able to take on a city with a scale like New York City. And so the idea of going from the sort of warm, summery fields of Somerville, Oklahoma, to New York City that would, in the height of its summer, go through a supernatural deep freeze was actually a really core early concept that Jason and I started to pitch before we ever fleshed out the rest of the story. And it was so we kind of knew where we were heading, and Garaka started to become the sort of physical embodiment of the terror that was going to have to be confronted by our heroes. He visually started to come together while we were writing him. I draw all the time while we're working. It's how I think sometimes. And so I started to sketch out this kind of nightmarish character with long curling nails and horns that would bend down behind him. And that series of drawings kind of very literally ended up being the character that you met in the film. And his name, I remember Jason just pulling the name out of the air. And it was just like, he turned to me and said, Garaka. And I was like, Garaka, that's it. So that was how we came together, imagery from one side, name from the other. And it's how we work always. We're sort of always spinning stories together, and it's a really joyous experience of creating with my best friend.
Now, on the subject of raising the stakes, was there ever any serious discussion about possibly killing off one of the Ghostbusters, like just in an effort to raise the stakes and the threat level with Garaka?
It was never actually on the table for this film, although it is nice to create the possibility for it, because for the audience there is an added threat and the heightening of the stakes. But I think it's partially, without going into any spoiler territory, because we have characters in this film that do genuinely come within millimeters of losing their life. And so to have done that and then actually go and cross that line just didn't feel like a place we really wanted to go with this story. And also, I think that, look, there is a body count in this film. It's the first Ghostbusters film where there is death on screen, and I'm proud of that. I do like the Garaka as a no-nonsense villain, but I also think that there is a responsibility in Ghostbusters, even just as a fan, to be cool about our characters. And that's not to say that we won't go there in the future, but it was never on the table for this story.
Now, was there ever any talks about using like Vigo the Carpathian or resurrecting one of the villains from the real Ghostbusters before you guys settled on Garaka?
No, I mean, we both do love Vigo, but we felt like because Gozer made their return in Afterlife, the onus on us was to leap boldly into the unknown with creating our villain and go off the map to discover their mythology and their story. We did watch a lot of episodes of Real Ghostbusters as a kind of cleansing and a heart-opening process before we started writing, because that show is first so good and super fun. And it also is wild with its boundary breaking in terms of pulling from mythologies and stories you may have heard of and giving corners of the city supernatural attention in a way that films just don't have the screen time to do. So watching those shows actually was really, really inspiring. And not in a literal way, but in a kind of broader, thematic, storytelling, spiritual way.
Now, do you have a favorite villain from the real Ghostbusters?
I do love Sam Hain. I love that show. I also love when the devil shows up in the real Ghostbusters. I love all the character possessions. I love that Janine got her first chance at being a Ghostbuster with a flight suit and a proton pack in that series. So I mean, that show ruled, and I would never say no to having some of those characters appear in the films.
Now, I know that there's some in there, but what was your favorite real Ghostbusters Easter egg that you planted in this film? I know there's going to be some.
Which one did you catch?
I didn't catch a whole lot, to be honest.
Well, look,
I only watched it once, so I usually comb through the second time or third time when I'm watching movies to look for Easter
the
eggs.
possessed Ecto one is definitely was something that was in the air in the real Ghostbusters, and we love the idea of being able to possess Ecto one. The wrist mounted proton thrower, the compact thrower, was another allusion to that show. But really, I'm being honest when I say that what really inspired us from that series was how free and loose and liberal it was with casting a wide net in the mythological spectrum. And that is like really thrilling when you're dealing with look, Ghostbusters has had a staked its claim in popular culture in a big way for 40 years, but there have only been within the canon of these stories 3 films before Frozen Empire. And so that is like not a ton of territory mined. So it is scary as a filmmaker, but also hugely thrilling to be able to kind of blow the doors open and say, "Oh, we're going to go all the way to here on this film." And yeah, it's really cool.
One thing that I love that you guys brought back, or who rather, is Walter Peck. I love that you brought him back for this. Was there ever any point that you guys spoke with like Rick Moranis about coming back and making a cameo? I know every Ghostbusters fan on the planet wants to see Rick Moranis.
I love Louis Tully. He was never a part of this story, but at some point in the writing, I remember thinking that we had room for Mayor Peck in this story, and I called up William Atherton, who I was obviously a fan of but had never met before. And I pitched him the idea of Walter Peck having risen to the lofty perch of mayor, and he started cracking up. There was this pause, and then he just started laughing, and he said, I think I like that a lot. But he hasn't played this part in so long. He hasn't played the part in 40 years. And so I didn't know. He's such a nice guy. I wasn't really sure what he would be able to conjure up until he got on that set and put on the vest. And I remember his chair swiveling around, and the look in the eyes was pure Walter Peck. And I was watching it from behind the camera, and I remember a feeling of sort of deep calm all of a sudden, like, okay, we got him back. And also as a fan, like jumping out of my skin with excitement that I was actually seeing this character come back to life for the first time in 40 years.
Now, this is something that I think could be a lot of fun, but if the Ghostbusters were ever to cross over with another franchise, which one would you most want to see? I have my ideas, but I want to hear yours.
I was just talking to my daughter about this, and so I feel like I want to remember where I was going with it. There was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle natural crossover that seemed really cool. There was what are some of your ideas?
The two that come to mind for me would be, I would love to see them cross over with Gremlins. Like, I think that would be fantastic.
That's so good.
Yeah, having Gremlins pop up in Ghostbusters, I think would be awesome.
By the way, that's a really, I want to hear the other one in a second, but I want to lean into that for a second, because I do have to call out Gremlins as being the other film in that moment in my life that tonally blew the roof off. Like, Gremlins was a movie that genuinely terrified and that wasn't afraid to have the stakes be lethal, but clearly was accessible or open to a 4-quadrant audience, like a young audience. Felt like the movie was for them too, but was dangerous. So yes, really well put. Good point. What else? What was the other one?
The other one that I would love would be Beetlejuice. Just because of how colorful the ghosts are in Beetlejuice, I think would mix really well with the sort of design of the ghosts in Ghostbusters. I think that'd be fantastic.
Wow. That's so cool.
Those would be my favorite, but yeah.
I'll keep them in mind.
Okay, sounds great. I don't even want any credit. I just want to see it happen on screen. So don't even
That's what
worry
they all
about
say.
it. I want to tell you why I still have you. I have watched Monster House at least a dozen times with my son. I
Thanks,
mean,
man.
we loved that movie when he was growing up, and so I just wanted to ask you, do you think that we'll ever get a Monster House sequel or spinoff of sorts? Is that a world that you're ever interested in going
I
back
love
to?
that movie so much, and I am looking to find something else that takes place tonally in that same world in animation. There might be another Monster House story. I haven't had the idea in the years since because I've been sort of also, it feels like that movie had such a complete story.
It does. It does. It
And
has a complete story. I agree.
I do love the fact that you know, there's the reason to revisit a film series is always character. So I think that is the reason to do it. And I am still friends with a lot of the cast from that film, and stayed in touch, especially with the young cast from that film, and they're all doing so well. It's been amazing to watch them grow into adults. Yeah, never say never. I'm psyched that you watched it with your son. That was my first movie, and I feel like for me it was a tonal calling card as much as anything. It was a reflection of the same experiences I had with movies like Ghostbusters and Gremlins, and Goonies and Beetlejuice, all movies that weren't afraid to thematically go a little more, a little darker, and to lift back the curtain on some of the scarier parts of the process of growing up, or just trying to live your life as a human in this world. And that all felt really authentic to me, even as a young movie lover. And there was a spate of films that were made in the 80s that weren't afraid to shine a light on those themes. And then that kind of went out of fashion, and it's still sort of out of fashion. And so I feel like we're out here doing our part, trying to add a little bit more, especially for younger audiences, a little bit more of a window into the full scope of the human experience, because that just means that you're having a deeper connection to the movie that you're watching, and a more authentic one.
I don't think we give kids enough credit for how resilient they are and how much they can handle, because I agree with you that I mean, because Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire did it masterfully as well, but I mean, it's silly in spots, but but stuff gets real as well. It's like it gets scary, and you did that so well. Last question for you before I probably run out of time, but I actually hosted McKenna Grace's panel at MegaCon. And she's fantastic. I mean, she's so good. But one thing we talked about that I found really interesting was she was telling me how many real ghost stories Dan Aykroyd has. So I was curious if you got to hang out with him, if he recounted any like real ghost stories to you that you sort of just sat for and listened to.
Absolutely. I mean, I think Dan might have met his match with me as a true believer. I know he comes from a long line of paranormal investigators. He has actually familial connections to it that he'll talk to you about at length. But I was lucky enough to be able to tell him a ghost story about my own experiences living in an old rambling house in Toronto, in his home country of Canada, where there was undeniably a spirit cohabitating with us in that house. I felt her presence the first time I was there in that house, and brought some ghost detecting equipment home with me to be able to get some sort of signature or imprint. The closest I got was when I set up a thermal imaging camera in the living room, and scanned around to try to see if I could pick up any sort of imprint. And as I turned the camera, I saw footsteps begin to make their way towards me on the carpet, getting with each step closer to me. And I remember catching my breath, like my breath catching in my throat, and then almost in real time realizing that there was a delay on the heat signature picking up, and that it was picking up the footsteps that I had just made like 30 seconds earlier, walking to the very spot where I was holding the camera. And it was an incredible moment because I totally went full in believing and feeling the thrill that I was making my first encounter like on camera. And then also being like, all right, you're gonna have to work a little bit harder. Yeah, like Dan is an incredible fountain of supernatural knowledge. And it's so cool, both from my point of view, as somebody who I think is kind of always open to the wonder of the unknown or the other side, to Ray Stantz as a character who lives in that window of opportunity and belief, and then now in Logan Kim's podcast, who is representing sort of the next generation of true blue believers. There is a really cool kind of a no shame corner of Ghostbusters where you can cast a really wide net of hope and belief in the supernatural.
That's awesome. Well, sir, I'm out of time. It was such a pleasure to get to meet you and talk to you.
Likewise.
Next time I'll have to recount some of my ghost stories for you. But anyway, you have a great day and congratulations on Frozen Empire, dude. It's awesome.
I really appreciate that. I really, really love the chat.